Here in Nigeria, Katsina State Governor and Chairman Northwest Governors Forum Dikko Rada has called on President Bola Tinubu to support the initiative of the governors of the geopolitical zone towards ending insecurity. According to him, the initiative is recruiting members of the affected communities to support conventional security agencies with credible intelligence to end banditry. He said this in Sokoto during the passing out parade of Sokoto State Community Guard Corps. Our Rise correspondent Suleiman Nasir tells us more.
Banditry that started as farmer-herder clashes in the northwest geopolitical region has escalated to full-fledged terrorism with devastating effects that are now threatening the socio-economic activities of the region. Leaders and other stakeholders in the region have made several efforts in the past, including reconciliation, amnesty, pardon, and other non-kinetic approaches toward finding a lasting solution to the crisis without any tangible results. Effort by military to arrest the situation is being frustrated by informers and other locals sympathetic to the cause of the terrorists. But this time around, governors of the Northwest region are coming up with a new idea that involves engaging members of the communities to assist conventional security agencies in combating terrorism in their region. Katsina State Governor, who is also the chairman of the Northwest Governors Forum, is appealing to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to support the initiative.
Lastly, I want to call on the federal government under the leadership of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to support the initiative of this state in curbing the insecurity in our localities. We need the support of the federal government.
Unite by way of sharing vital information to fight our current common enemy. I may also call on Trainee to justify the huge resources invested on you. And the only way you can do that is to be a good ambassador of the state. Remain focused.
The Sultan of Sokoto emphasizes the need for synergy among all stakeholders and calls for more concerted effort toward peace restoration in the country.
This issue is not a Sokoto state issue. It's an issue affecting the whole country, especially the northwestern part of the country. We are very happy to see all of you and to welcome you and assure you, as traditional and religious leaders, we must always support actions that will bring peace and stability to our communities and to our...
Still, to be able to achieve success, there must be synergy and implicit trust of all the security outfits. In practical terms, I would like to urge the conventional security agencies to create desks for representatives from the community guards corps.
Every part of the country is battling one form of security challenge or the other. This is forcing governors within each region to come together to find a solution.
Well, the federal government says that some sub-regional forces are actively conspiring against the stability of Nigeria. This was said by the presidential spokesperson, Ajuri Ngelale. Now let's bring in Captain Bish Johnson, a former U.S. Army captain, and he's been following developments for many years in Nigeria. Good to see you and thanks for your time. I hate to sound, prophetic or like a broken record saying deja vu. We've always had this conversation. Here we are again looking at what's happening. We'll come back to Sokoto, but first let's talk about what has happened leading up to this moment where we now have a lot of people being incorporated into security outfits. What do you think is wrong? Because now people are still asking how bandits or group of terrorists can come and take our own children, not in tens and 20s, but in hundreds, without a trace till this moment.
Well, if you, like you rightly stated, we've been following this trend of activities for years now. And if you look at the areas where these incidents have been taking place, there's always one thing in common. By the way, on Friday, in one community in Abacheke in Imo State, masked gunmen wearing military uniform stormed a joint where some youths were drinking, shot and killed 4 and injured 1. And it's in the rural community. So if you look at the places where all these things are taking place, they all bear one thing in common. They are in the rural parts of the country. And so with that, you can see that there's that little or no presence of security agencies in some of those communities. That is why bandits or gunmen can invade a community, ransack that community for 2, 3, 4 hours before there is a response from our security agencies, because the security agencies are very far distant away from some of these places where these things are happening. So it means that our security architecture is not expansive enough to cover all of these rural areas in Nigeria. And I think that is where we need to focus our attention. The metropolitan areas are doing a little okay, except 1 or 2 isolated incidents, which government quickly moves in and bring to an end. So we have to look more on how we can shore up security in the rural areas. And that goes in line with what we are just watching happening in Sokoto State. We have to have more boots on the ground to cover a lot of all these unsecured, massive rural communities in Nigeria where these incidents have been taking place.
And again, it looks to some people as, because we had Kabir Adamu on Newsline last week, and some of the concerns is the proliferation of what these states are already doing. How well have we been able to have a good recruiting system and even monitoring of such training? And maybe for those that are handling weapons, I do not see some of them doing that yet, that we're able to, gauge the people we're bringing that will ultimately help us fight insecurity. So these are people that ordinarily should bring some form of concern. Every state is pushing into this, and it doesn't look like we're getting the needed result, does it?
Yeah, you see, we can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. We've been concerned about, the people we are bringing in, especially the ones that the states are bringing in, for a long period of time. Yet the insecurity has continued. There are weapons, millions of weapons already in the hands of civilians and rogue actors in Nigeria. In their millions. In fact, if you check the ratio of the weapons in the hands of our security agents to compare it to that in the hands of civilians and rogue elements in Nigeria, the ratio is about 1 to 10. Now, the security agencies have roughly about 580-something weapons in their possession. Why these civilians and rogue elements control about 140-something, about 6.something million weapons in their hands. So, yes, we should have concern about the recruitment of these people. However, until we're able to amend our constitution, remove police. I don't believe that police should be in the constitution. I think that police should be legislated upon, just like you have civil defense, road safety created by an act of National Assembly. I think that is how police needs to be. It shouldn't be a constitutional matter like you have the armed forces. So that way we will be flexible enough to adapt to changing dynamics of insecurity, because insecurity changes all the time. It's dynamic, it's always changing. And so if we have the institution, the most basic institution that is supposed to fight this insecurity enshrined in the constitution, it's not going to give us that flexibility for us to be able to rejig the architecture, to be able to meet the changing dynamics of insecurity. So what the state governors are doing is, because they're helpless and frustrated, is trying to, close a vacuum that is already in existence. Because if you, like I told you in my previous opening remark, there are areas in these rural areas that don't have any kind of security presence. And that is why bandits and criminals are able to operate in those communities for hours before they are being challenged by security agencies. So until we can have more boots on the ground, we should worry less about the type of people that we're bringing. I'm not saying that it's not a problem, but I'm saying that they are being recruited by the various state governments. So the various state governments, one way or the other, we have some kind of database on the people they are bringing in. But we have to rein in insecurity in Nigeria. Nigeria has suffered insecurity under 2 presidencies, Jonathan and Buhari. It will be a travesty if we suffer insecurity again in the hands of a 3rd presidency. We can't go through insecurity in the manner and the level that we went through insecurity in those 2 previous administrations and go through it again in this this particular administration. It will be a travesty.
In that case, let's see if we can do this in a minute. Has anything changed? Because, well, in as much as, well, there seem to be changes in government, everything still seems to be the same. Chibok, you know, and now we're talking about what has happened in these 2 communities of Kaduna and some other places in Sokoto. So what else should we be looking to doing?
Well, look, I personally think that the president should declare a state of emergency in insecurity. Pay more attention to insecurity in the land, because everything we're discussing, all of them revolve around security, whether it's the cost of food. By the way, let me tell you one of the reasons why food is very expensive in Nigeria is because we don't have enough food. And the reason we don't have enough food is because there are not enough farmers going to their farms now because of insecurity. Now, if you deal with insecurity, deal with transportation cost of transportation, you would have brought down this high cost of living that Nigerians have been crying about by 50%. So the president should pay very much attention to insecurity. I know he's trying to grow the economy. Nigerians can't grow their own economy alone. We need to bring in foreign investors as well. And so long as insecurity is high, the information or the news that is outside the shores of Nigeria should not always be about this negative news that we are getting about bandits, you know, abducting 200 and something students. It has become a recurring decimal in Nigeria. There is no other place in the world where you hear this kind of recurring news of bandits kidnapping school children in their hundreds.
Well, it's something that we really will stay on now. We'd like to thank you for your time. 2 presidencies and still the same issue, and the third, you say, should not go the way of the other 2 in terms of fighting insecurity. Captain Bish Johnson, always a delight having you.
Thank you for having me.